What happened on February 28, 2026 was not just another airstrike in West Asia. It was not another episode in the long running shadow boxing match between the United States, Israel, and Iran. This was the moment the shadow war stepped into full daylight. The coordinated US Israel assault, branded Operation Epic Fury, was not designed to send a message. It was designed to end an era. When over 500 targets were hit, including nuclear facilities, ballistic missile sites, IRGC command centers, the objective was unmistakable: break the spine of the Islamic Republic. And then came the shockwave, the confirmed death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. That single event may prove more destabilizing than every missile combined. To understand why, we need to understand how Iran is built. Under Articles 5 and 107 of the Iranian constitution, the supreme leader, that is the Wali-e-Faqih, is not a ceremonial figure. He is the apex authority. The executive, the legislature, the judiciary, the armed forces all ultimately bend toward him. Remove that node and you don't just lose a leader, you risk collapsing the operating system. Article 111 of the Iranian constitution anticipates this scenario. If the supreme leader dies, an interim leadership council steps in. It includes the president, the head of the judiciary, and a member of the guardian council. Their job is to hold the fort until the assembly of experts elects a successor. On paper, that sounds orderly, constitutional, almost calm. Reality is rarely so polite. Ayatollah Alireza Arafi has reportedly been named to the interim council, but constitutional procedure does not equal political stability. Legitimacy is not paperwork, it is perception, and perception inside Iran is fractured. There are reports of celebrations in cities like Isfahan and Shiraz, open displays of relief, even defiance. Meanwhile, in Mashhad, mourning ceremonies dominate the streets. One nation, two emotional universes. The regime now faces what political theorists call a legitimacy trap. If it shows weakness during succession, protests could metastasize into something revolutionary. If it responds with overwhelming force, it risks accelerating collapse. Every move tightens the vice. Now zoom out. Why did Washington and Tel Aviv escalate from precision strikes to what they are calling decisive attrition? The stated rationale is simple: neutralize Iran's nuclear and ballistic capabilities. The strikes targeted IRGC headquarters, advanced air defense systems like the HQ-9B, and nuclear infrastructure including Natanz. Initial IAEA assessments suggested limited damage at some facilities like Bushehr, but subsequent reports indicate deeper structural hits. But let's be intellectually honest. This is not just about nuclear denial, it is about regime architecture. Unlike the 2015 JCPOA era, when the strategy was containment and negotiated rollback, the current doctrine appears aligned with a more muscular philosophy, often described as peace through strength. The objective now seems to be dismantling the IRGC's command and control capacity entirely. Here is the dangerous assumption embedded in that strategy: that removing the head of the regime automatically produces a pro-Western democratic transition. History laughs at that assumption. Iraq in 2003 did not transform into a Jeffersonian republic overnight. Libya after Gaddafi did not become Switzerland. Power vacuums do not self-correct. They attract militias, factions, warlords, and foreign opportunities. There is a real risk here of what analysts call Somalization, which means prolonged fragmentation, civil conflict, and non-state actors carving up the political landscape. The Islamic Republic may be deeply unpopular in segments of Iranian society, but dismantling it does not guarantee a liberal successor. It may simply unleash chaos. Now consider the regional response. Iran has not remained passive. Missile strikes on US bases in Qatar, including Al Udeid and Bahrain, signal that Tehran is willing to escalate horizontally. Attacks targeting civilian infrastructure in Riyadh and Dubai widen the theater further. Then there is the Strait of Hormuz. Roughly 20% of global petroleum flows through that narrow corridor. If it is effectively closed or militarized, this is no longer a regional conflict. It becomes an energy crisis with global consequences. Oil prices spike, insurance premiums surge, shipping routes reroute, inflationary pressures ripple outward. War in the 21st century is fought not just with missiles but with choke points. The axis of resistance, including Iran, Hezbollah, remnants of Syrian networks, is cornered. Bashar al-Assad regime already fell in late 2024, removing a major regional pillar. Hezbollah opening a front against Israel on March 2nd signals that containment has failed. The conflict is expanding beyond Iranian borders. This is the collapse of traditional deterrence. For decades, the region functioned under a tense but understood equilibrium. Proxy strikes, covert sabotage, limited retaliations. Red lines were blurred but rarely obliterated. Operation Epic Fury obliterated them. Now let's bring this home to India. India has nearly 10 million citizens living across the Gulf. That is demographic reality. That demographic reality transforms distant conflict into immediate national concern. Disruption of Qatari LNG supplies affects India's energy matrix. A spike in maritime insurance premiums hits trade margins. Any sustained closure of Hormuz pressures the fiscal balance. This is not abstract geopolitics, it is macroeconomic math. Diplomatically, India has called for restraint and dialogue. That fits within its long standing doctrine of strategic autonomy, meaning maintaining relations across rival blocs without full alignment. But if Indian merchant vessels are struck or nationals are harmed, the posture may shift from neutral advocacy to assertive maritime security engagement. That is the tightrope. So, where does this go? The 47-year-old theocratic status quo in Iran may be unraveling. But the end of an old order does not automatically produce a stable new one. Success for the US and Israel will not be measured by how many missile silos were destroyed. It will be measured by whether the region descends into a decade-long polycrisis, means overlapping conflicts, energy shocks, militia warfare, refugee flows, or whether some diplomatic off-ramp emerges before fragmentation becomes irreversible. We are watching a geopolitical decapitation in real time. The central question is not whether deterrence has ended, it has. The real question is whether anyone is prepared for what grows in that vacuum. History suggests that power vacuums do not stay empty. They ferment, and what emerges is rarely predictable, often volatile, and sometimes far more dangerous than the regime that preceded it. This is not just the end of a leader, it may be the end of a strategic equilibrium that held imperfectly, tensely, but functionally for decades. And when equilibria collapse, the world does not become quieter, it becomes uncertain. That uncertainty is now the defining feature of West Asia's new chapter.